New allegations tonight involving drug research at the University of Minnesota. A man who was recruited for a clinical trial says he was misled about the possible dangers and suffered horribly because of it.
Now, an ex-governor is joining others who want an outside investigation of the U's human research programs. Fox 9 investigator Jeff Ballion has more.
I said, I'm done. I'm not taking these anymore because I thought I was going to die,
All he wants is an apology.
Because what happened to me was really horrible.
But a former government regulator believes what happened to Robert is so disturbing, it warrants a federal investigation.
That whole picture is very troubling and reflects a failure to ensure that subjects are being adequately protected regarding this research.
Robert's story is part of an ongoing Fox 9 investigation into drug research by the University of Minnesota's Department of Psychiatry. Last fall, we reported on the case of Dan Markinson, who died after trying to cut his head off while enrolled in a drug trial. Robert says his experience in a different study nearly drove him to commit suicide.
They don't care what happens to the person. They care about the money from the drug companies.
Back in 2007, Robert developed ringing in his ears, started hearing voices, was feeling anxious. He feared it was a brain tumor and went to the emergency room. He was transferred to the psych unit at Fairview Riverside Hospital, where he was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. That's where he was approached by U of M researchers.
Immediately, they were on me to do experimental medication that's not FDA approved. And I have never been on medication in my life.
Robert says he felt coerced to enroll in a trial for an experimental drug called bifeprinox.
And then they say, you have a giant medical bill. And if you do the research study, you won't have this giant medical bill.
He says he was worried about the safety of bifeprinox since it did not have FDA approval.
He told me the drug was safe, and he told me that it was going to be the next treatment for schizophrenia, and everyone was going to be taking it.
Robert gave the U permission to release his medical files to the Fox 9 investigators. Dr. Stephen Olson was in charge of the trial. Part of his salary was paid for by the drug's makers, Solvay Pharmaceuticals. Olson wrote in the clinical record that Robert was very interested in the opportunity to have his medical expenses covered by the study because he had no insurance. He also noted Robert did have concerns about the drug's safety. Although initially leery of the bifeprinox study, as was experimental medication, he was reassured that enough patients have been treated to be more sure of its safety.
That is inappropriate. It minimizes the risk, and that was the very reason this trial was being done, to try to find out, indeed, if the drug is safe.
Dr. Michael Carome is a physician who previously worked for the federal government's Office of Human Research Protection. He helped develop and write the regulations that are supposed to guard research subjects from abuse. He's now on staff with the watchdog group Public Citizen.
One should have provided no assurances that the drug is safe.
We asked Dr. Carome to review Robert's records.
It really is understating the risks.
We now know in hindsight there were significant risks with this drug. Just weeks after Robert enrolled in the study, the FDA rejected bifeprinox for approval. Within months, the drug maker halted all research after the medication was linked to the death of a study subject in Europe who suffered liver failure.
And I was incompetent, and I didn't know what I was doing.
Robert can't recall if university researchers ever told him about those developments. There was no written notification we could find in his file about the FDA denying approval of the drug. He did sign a consent form when he first enrolled in the study. There was a line in that about a death in another bifeprinox study related to liver abnormality.
And the way the language read in the consent form downplayed that risk inappropriately.
I should have been taken out of the study right away when I had these pains.
Records show while Robert was in the trial, he complained of having abdominal pain. 3 times he went to the emergency room, once by ambulance. One ER doc suspected the pain might be related to the experimental drug.
In fact, abdominal discomfort and constipation were listed as possible side effects of bifeprinox. Dr. Olson, the study investigator, made note of Robert's complaints and reported them to the drug company. But documents show he listed their connection to bifeprinox as unlikely.
The presumption should have been that those were due to the drug unless proven otherwise.
3 months into the study, Robert said the pain was so bad that he was having thoughts of suicide and decided to drop out of the research. Here's what Dr. Olson wrote about that. He decided to quit the study due to these psychosomatic side effects. Dr. Carome finds it troubling that Olson discounted the possibility the drug was responsible for Robert's symptoms.
That's really not in the best interest of the human subjects, whereas it might be in the best interest of the sponsor who hopes someday to get this drug approved by the FDA.
Dr. Olson declined to be interviewed by the Fox 9 investigators. He has not responded to our questions about what he told Robert early on about the drug's safety, or why he determined the side effects Robert was having were psychosomatic.
In a statement to Fox 9, Olson called into question Robert's ability to recall what really happened in 2007. His medical record shows extreme anxiety and paranoia, a history of head injuries, and lengthy battle with alcoholism. It is highly inappropriate for him to be put in the media spotlight as a spokesperson for clinical trial safety. After Robert left the study, he sought conventional treatment for his illness and is doing well.
People are more important than research, and they don't seem to understand that.
His vulnerability at the time of his recruitment is exactly what concerns experts like Dr. Carome and others.
Then they proceeded to tell her exactly how he died, and it was in a horrific suicide.
This month marks the 10th anniversary of the suicide death of Dan Markinson, a research subject in another drug trial run by Dr. Olson. Markinson's family accuses university researchers of coercing Dan to enroll in the study and then ignoring their pleas to have him removed because they feared he was in danger of killing himself or someone else. An FDA investigation cleared the U of any wrongdoing, but a group of 170 scholars worldwide wants the case reopened and the U's human research practices scrutinized by independent experts.
My concern is that there's widespread abuse of psychiatric research trials, that this isn't an isolated case, that there are more deaths like this.
Some medical students at the U want an outside investigation as well. They recently staged a protest at the Board of Regents meeting.
I want to see some justice done on this.
Former Governor Arne Carlson contacted the Fox 9 investigators after seeing our coverage of the research controversy.
Well, I'm going to continue to press.
He has since written letters to the university's president, the Board of Regents, and Governor Dayton, urging them to do something.
I can't get a solid answer on how many people, have been victimized by this. What does that tell us? It tells us that secrecy runs rampant at a time when we need openness.
Carlson says nothing short of an independent, very public review of what's going on in the university's psych research department will do. The U has declined our request to be interviewed about either the Markinson case or Roberts. They tell us an internal investigation of Robert's complaints is currently underway.
Like I told the people in my group therapy, they said, this sounds like some horror story out of the 1950s. You know, they couldn't believe it happened in this present day.
I'm Fox 9 investigator Jeff Ballion.